Honestly, this might be Pee-wee's best moment when Pee-wee gets upset that it can't be handcuffed, so then it just kind of keeps its, like, feather things together. It's just, honestly, a pretty funny moment. But I have to say, Hell pretty much pimp slapping and slapping everyone around to the point that, honestly, they were probably close to calling Helk daddy. Like, let's be totally honest here. It wasn't until the very end of this episode where he made a fist. Everything up to that point was just, I slap you. I slap you. I slap you. And I was loving it, man, because it was interesting because we end last week with this whole big octopus, which Helk pretty much has to just swim away from, all things considered. But still, we then end up with this entirely interesting plotline where you have this village that was cursed and turned into monsters, as then Helk and Lady Anne, aka Vermilio, just completely wipe the floor, and this thing becomes like a super scroll, and honestly, I'm hyped for episode 10. But I do have a full live reaction to today's wonderful Helk episode available on my Patreon, so if you would like to see that, it's over there. If you're interested, we got quite a bit to discuss. Now, I will admit, I do think this episode was a little less refined than previous episodes. Now, not saying Helk has ever looked like the best show of the season, but when people bring up like inconsistencies and stuff, it really hasn't bothered me the same way it has other people. But I will say, like, the first half of this episode felt a lot more outsourced, like the eye quality, like, you know, every other scene with a character would look a little different. It did feel a little more sloppy, but they definitely picked it up once the gang kind of rolled in. And we had this kind of all-out brawl, which was pretty much a one-sided massacre. And the chief, the leader, who pretty much thinks he's king of everything over here, is just so up on his own high horse. He's basically sniffing his own ass at this point. And I love how even after pretty much losing and being like, there's no way someone as pathetic and worthless as you would be able to do this to me, he decides to take some steroids, power himself up, and try again. But honestly, man, like, Helk was slapping his entire crew around. This crew, while impressive, 50 men, was able to completely overtake an entire city, seemingly. But at the end of the day, when you have He-Man working for any character, I mean, you gotta bet on He-Man. And he had some menacing moments. Now, Helk is no stranger to menacing moments. There's been death glares. There's been faces that he's made to characters in flashbacks to even in present day where you're like, I'm glad he's on our side, cause oh shit, that would not be good if he was looking at us like that. But this episode, there's so many moments. I think probably my overall favorite was when he was just kind of like beefed up. He was kind of like flexing, and then there's like the eyes behind him. Like he was mad this episode, man. And not in the way that he's like, I'm gonna go slaughter everyone, but more so, I think the best way to explain his mindset is what he says near the end of the episode, that it's not just humans who have scumbags like this around. It's everyone has. It's just like pretty much Helk's at the point of being like, I'm gonna hate everyone equally because everyone can just be so scummy. And the idea of just like this very kind princess who immediately, like, when she saw that her people were trying to give prisoners over and turn them into slaves, she slapped them. And honestly, that probably inspired Helk to start slapping fools afterward. He's like, oh, maybe I don't gotta punch. Maybe I can just slap fools around. Because then when you see her pretty much get assaulted, and like, it makes sense from like a kind of fighter's point of view, because he's pretty much like, you know, them submitting's boring to him, right? Like, he has no fight. For him, fighting someone like Helk or someone putting up a fight, that's where his entertainment comes from. Is it right? Oh, absolutely not. But you understand what type of sick mofo is like that. And they did a good job at really kind of subverting expectations. Because I think pretty much everyone assumed, like, okay, big whirlpool, could get sucked down. Maybe we'll find the lost city of Atlantis. Who knows what we're going to discover. But most importantly, Helk's probably going to one-shot this giant octopus. And then he does a good indent, and then it just bounces him off, right? So, like, overall, I think most of us thought that was going to be the big moment. And it was kind of refreshing seeing how, like, you know, he gets dragged down. I mean, we see him bleed. We don't really see Helk bleed, right? Like, he might get a little singe on his hands because some fire nipped him or something, but he's a beefy and very defense-filled boy. So for him to pretty much, you know, swim away and just, I thought we were going to go to the island and he'd just say, hey, we're going to have dinner now. Here's the octopus. But no, it's just him with his goal sign, right? So it was kind of nice how it just immediately then throws you into this new culture who, you know, immediately you could tell something was up. They were like, the legs were shaking almost immediately. They were sweating. They were nervous. And honestly, their handcuffs were wood, man. Like, he broke his immediately. She could have burned through it at any point. And just seeing how, like, they were just, you know, once happy place and now just completely tortured. And then this goofball comes, 5 days early or something, she said. And she's trying to be nice, trying to just say, like, I'm going to give you what you need, keep my people safe. And he's pretty much saying, either you all die or you come with me now. And it's like, bro, what the hell? Like, thank God our characters were here because people like that deserve the pimp slap of death. And truthfully, The crew basically called Hulk daddy. No one can convince me otherwise, because it was so funny, because it's not like he just did it once. Like, he did it to the first guy and he went flying, and then 2 or 3 decided to jump him, and then they all decided, and he just kept going, like, just swatting it away. Just swatting it away. I'm like, bro, Hulk is built this different that he can literally swat you away. It's like the princess slaps Sir Man's face, right? And yeah, it's like, oh, that probably stings. Hulk does it, and you're convinced he might have cut their heads off in the process, but maybe he knows his own strength, I don't know. But either way, we are pretty deep now into the Hulk anime. Of course, it's a 2-course, so we still have a lot of episodes left to go. But around this point, I think, this is when a lot of people start wondering, do they want a season 2? And in this case, luckily, we have Core 2 just around the corner. But these are the moments where you're like, okay, what have we seen? What do we want to see? And if they were to never give us any more anime, would we even think about it, right? And I think for me, and probably many people watching Hulk at this point, the thing that has really hooked us in is there's obviously the mystery with what happened with humanity and what this dude did and why he's basically turning races into guardian angel slaves, all things considered. You have the Hulk storyline about how not only is he such a ride or die for Lady Anne, the fact that from in the previous episode with the witch, I mean, she pretty much said, like, he will be your great ally, but he's also, whenever his end goal is here, it will destroy everything, or maybe it will work out. There's not going to be an in-between, right? So there's a lot of mystery there, and I think the growing bond and how they continuously sprinkle in these moments where you look at what she's saying, right? Like, the beginning of her and Hulk's relationship was, I'm going to expose this man. He's a human. He's going to destroy our species. And then she was forced to work with him, and every step of the way when she learns more about how he can be dangerous and her gut instincts were right, she looks at this at face value of a man who's saying, drive away from the whirlpool, don't worry. And she trusts him, and she believes him in him. And that's why, like, when she sees that he's alright, and, didn't come back to the boat, she's so pissed off because she genuinely cares for him. So there's a lot of really good character moments going on. There's the entire plot line going on with the Demon Realm back home, right? There's the witch, there's Lady Vermilio, then you have Hulk, and then you got the Pee-wee stuff. There's so many character things, but they're slowly opening up the world at the appropriate pace and really turning Hulk into one of this year's best, and that's not even up for discussion in my opinion. Should the production and could the production be better? Yes. And maybe if it was a little flashier, more people would watch it. But it doesn't look ugly. It does look inconsistent at times, and it does look like an early 2000s anime pretty much all the time. But I do like the color palette, and I like the style that they're going with. And for narrative and character wise, I wouldn't change a damn thing. I love the voice acting, and I don't find the show ugly to look at. I just kind of find it inconsistent to look at, if that makes sense. But hey, what do I know? Let me know what you thought of this week's episode of Hulk, because quite a bit happened, and definitely it subverted my expectations, so I'd love to know what you thought and where maybe you thought the episode was going to go overall. Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more videos to the channel. And like I mentioned, we do have a full live reaction to today's wonderful Hulk episode available on my Patreon, and while you're there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Chemist, Cody Fox, Count Viscount, Krusty, Crystal Plays, and Cult of Gom. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.